欢迎来到一家 del Pinti Wu. Welcome to Hangar Chat number 5. Today we have something a little bit different. I've made a video with Tim the Plane Man, and I'm just doing a little introduction here because you'll notice I'm not wearing my my logos or anything, so it's all been a little bit off the cuff, not on Tim's part but on my part. There is slight delays because Tim is in Canada and I'm in England, so when you see things I'm sort of reacting early or reacting a little bit late because that's a slight little delay. But I do have to thank Tim because Tim very kindly and of his own free volition has edited the video. He is quite adept at these things and I am not. But there again, I think he's, did he say he's a computer scientist? I'm not a computer scientist. So please enjoy the Hangar Chat and I hope you get something out of it. And here we go. Enjoy the Hangar Chat. Thank you for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, Hangar Chat number 5. Today I have a very special guest, Tim the Plane Man.
Hi everyone.
And, hi, and he's very kindly agreed, probably unwisely, to answer a few questions for me. Tim does a lot of software and electronics that he puts into aircraft. And I've been following Tim for about a year now, and I thought, you know what, I'll get him on if he's willing to and answer a few questions because I don't understand what it is and why he's trying to do it. So he's kindly agreed to come on and just answer a few questions, and hopefully we can have a bit of a laugh and see how it goes. So, you know, hi Tim, thanks for coming on.
Hey Nick.
Hi.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, this should be fun. It'll be really interesting to see if I can explain what I think I know in something that makes some kind of sense. Hope you can help me with that.
And Tim was very kind to send me a thermal mug, which I'm having a cup of tea with now. Thank you. So Tim, I'll just go straight into it because I'm really keen to know what the answers are going to be to this. My first question is, how long have you been making models, and how did you come to make a YouTube channel? What was your inspiration?
So several questions all in one. So the first question about making models is kind of two answers, because the first answer is I started making models, making flying models, and even building, they call it nitro-powered planes, in fact diesel. I had a diesel-powered control line plane that I built, and I'm not 100% sure, it's back in the depths of time, the mists of time, maybe 1975, 76, something like that. And so I got into flying models, and I used to make, I know I made a glider, and I know I made a couple of control line planes, and I ordered I remember it was a PAW 2.5cc diesel motor that I put in those, both of those control line planes actually, and I ordered from the UK by mail order, and it took like 3 months to get to Australia at the time. So that's the long answer. But then I didn't do anything for years. Life happened and I went off and did other things, and I didn't, like I've heard stories of other people, I think maybe like yourself, who've been sort of doing model airplanes for all your lives. Well, I didn't, and I pretty much rediscovered it again during COVID. I think pretty much I got bored, was watching, looking on Facebook, and a friend of mine posted a really awesome video of a Spitfire, a real Spitfire, and I started to think, you know what, I got nothing to do, why don't I order and build a little plane. So I ordered a vintage model company Spitfire Night Fighter, what do you call it, rubber powered free flight plane, and built it and flew it, and that's how it all started. And when I built it and I flew it, I did video it, and I posted the original video just as a short YouTube video. It flew for all of 7 seconds, I think, but still, it got the, that's where I got the bug. I got the bug. Like, the plane, building the plane was just so much fun, and I loved how it came out. I still have it up on my shelf, and but then I thought, and then I kind of got the bug about the YouTube thing too. I've been sort of playing around with YouTube and that kind of thing for a while, but I didn't straight away start with YouTube. What happened, I guess, was that after I next started building little radio controlled plane models for Dancing Wings kits, I looked online and found on YouTube some videos about building and flying those planes, and they were almost what I wanted in terms of explaining what needed to be done to build the plane, but they weren't quite what I was looking for, and I just thought, I can do that. I think I can do better than that. Why don't I give it a shot? I mean, if nobody watches, I've had fun, and if people watch and people are starting to watch, then maybe I can help other people enjoy the hobby. And a bit like the Petrinchich brothers, which I love watching. The whole point is it's the best hobby in the world, and I enjoy it, and I want to help other people get the buzz out of it that I get. So I do that, and I do that with the YouTube videos, just to try and spread the love, I suppose, but also to maybe help people to understand some things that I think I can figure out and hopefully explain.
Well, I was very impressed because you put this one video up and you said, well, we're going to fly this today, and this is the anniversary. I've been doing this 1 year. And I thought, you've been doing this 1 year and you've made that? This is not a beginner's aircraft. And I thought, wow, this he's got a skill. And I'm going to look a bit deeper into this. And the fact that you were, as we say in English slang, going one on. And I thought, well, this could be interesting. So, this is absolutely fascinating for me. But how did you come to the idea of, installing stabilisation equipment into your models?
Oh, well, that was just, necessity is the motherhood of invention, I think. What really happened was that, I really have only been flying radio control planes for less than a year. And in fact, when I started doing that, it was only a few months. And I was working with an instructor at my local flying club, but I wasn't that good. And I was building some planes, like at the time, I think I was building the Sopwith Camel, the Guilo Sopwith Camel radio conversion that you can see. Where is it? Right, this finger. There it is, right there. And
yeah.
And I had an awesome time building that plane, but it's very fragile. It's built originally to be a free flight model, and the wood, I guess maybe the kit I got was probably almost 40 years old, I think. And the wood was fragile. I did try to reinforce it, but I kept thinking as I was building it, I need some help with this. If I'm going to fly this, I'm going to crash it the first time I fly it, and I want some help. And I'm in technology, it's what I do for a day job, so my first thought about that is there has to be a better way. There has to be some technology that can help me. So I started investigating and looking at stabilizers, and that's how I started, really. And I did, while I was building the Camel, I put a stabilizer into a second-hand plane that I'd bought just to understand it and figure out how it worked. And then I got another more advanced stabilizer and put it into another plane. And then eventually I bought a quite advanced, but still, a stabilizer. It's a bit like, a bit like SAFE that you get with Spectrum,
yeah.
Right? I bought a more advanced stabilizer that really just keeps the plane from flipping over or stalling by helping you out as it's flying through the air. And so I got one of those, and I put that again into there it is again, the Sopwith Camel. And eventually, when I finally am game to fly it, that's going to help me not crash that plane. But What happened next was kind of luck, because I was looking around for stabilizers online, and some of them you can get for $20 or so. They're actually quite cheap. And some of the more advanced ones can cost $100. And there was this flight controller that had an amazing deal at the time, 80 Canadian dollars for what is called a Pix Racer, which is capable of running Autopilot, which is one of the one of the advanced flight controllers. We might talk about that a little bit. And 80 Canadian dollars is crazy. That's, I think it's like 50 pounds. I actually figured it out. Where did I store that? 50 pounds. That's about 50 pounds sterling. And probably, I don't know, around $60, $70 US, something like that. And it was like crazy cheap. So I just bought it. I think I maybe had been watching the Petrinčić brothers that day, where they say, just click on something. So I clicked. And what I clicked on was this flight controller. And I bought this flight controller. And then I had to figure it out. And that was quite an adventure. And I posted a whole series of videos called 3 Days of the Pix Racer about how I opened the box and tried to understand what was going on inside this little thing. And then I put it in a plane and flew it, and to me it's a puzzle. I love the puzzle attitude of figuring out how all of these things work, and when they work, they do something. And even more importantly, when you put it in a plane and it flies a plane, and it automatically flies the plane through the air for you, and you don't even have to touch the control. To me, it's like magic. It's like watching Catweasel, and his reaction to modern technology, if anybody knows the reference. And so I just got fascinated by the whole concept.
Wow. Well, I don't even know or understand really sort of how you sort of went that one on exactly, but I'm glad you did, because the next question I have is this the same technology that you would use in a drone, and can it really be adapted to aircraft? Because I can't quite see in my own mind where that crossover is. There's just something in my head that just won't go, well, will that work?
Yeah, to answer the first question, yes, it is exactly the same technology that is used in a drone. It's the same thing. Autopilot, which is the software that I use, but there's others like Betaflight or iNav, and they're the big ones, the main ones. But they all have drone versions and plane versions of the same software. And it's just so when I flash Autoplane onto a plane for when I'm going to fly my Pix Racer or my new Zealot flight controller, I can flash Autoplane on it, or I can just as easily blow that away. It's like reformatting your hard drive on your computer, and instead of putting Windows, putting Linux or some other operating system on the computer. I can just blow the plane software away and put the drone software on, and then I can take that same flight controller and I can put it in a drone, just connect different wiring. A plane typically has maybe 1 or 2 motors, and a drone might have 4 or 6 or 8 motors, and the controller is the computer that's basically deciding how that all works. The main difference with a plane versus a drone, I think, is as simple as a drone. You can't fly a drone manually. Like, you can't have a drone with 4 propellers that are lifting the plane up and actually use your transmitter and control it without crashing it. That has to have a computer to keep it stable in the air, to adjust it so that it actually just doesn't flip over. The plane will fly by itself without the flight controller intervening. And I always set one of my switches on my flight controller so I have a manual mode. I can go into manual mode anytime I'm flying a plane, just at the press of a button, and fly it without and basically everything I do on the transmitter is just going through the flight controller and out to the servos in the wings and to the motor, and the flight controller is sitting there passively and just doing nothing. But then you can switch it into advanced modes, which again are exactly like your safe or AS3X mode if you're a Spectrum user. And in both of those cases, what's actually going on is the transmitter is sending the instructions to the AS3X or safe or to the flight controller. The flight controller is then processing that and saying, if this guy does what he thinks he's trying to do, that plane is going to crash, so I'm not going to let you do that. I'm going to stabilize, I'm going to actually adjust the outputs and you know, level out what the pitch control that's being sent to the elevator, or change the pitch control, the roll control that's being sent to the ailerons, or the throttle that's, you know, the amount, if the person's trying to throttle down and the plane's going to stall, I'm going to throttle up, that kind of thing. So it's really just the flight controller sits in between the pilot and the plane, and the only difference is what kinds of things are plugged into the flight controller. Is it just 4 motors for a quad, for a standard drone, or is it elevators, ailerons, rudder, and a single motor for a regular plane? Or, and this is very interesting and something that is going to be my next leap forward, VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing, or quad planes, which is kind of like a Frankenstein's monster, where you have a plane that has also has lifting motors as well. So you can have 4 motors. The plane can take off in a hover, a bit like a Harrier jump jet, and then transition into forward flight using a forward-facing motor, and use the wings for flying. And all of that is possible with this technology, which is just absolutely mind-blowing. It's quite exciting. Maybe I get a little bit overexcited about it, but I just think it's absolutely fascinating. And one of the key things about it, for those of you like yourself, Nick, maybe, who are a bit worried, well, I don't know how that all works, most of it is handled by the flight controller itself. As long as you do some basic things and follow some instructions, it can be, you know, you don't have to know the details. You don't have to be a programmer. You don't have to be an advanced technician to understand it. That's the whole point of having a flight controller, which does all that work for you, a bit like with the drone. You know, you don't need to understand how to stabilize a quad in the air in order to fly a DJI Mavic 2 or Mavic 3. It's just handled. All you have to do is move the sticks.
So it's not impossible that one day we'll end up flying X-wing fighters.
People have already built them, actually. Yes, radio-controlled X-wing fighters.
I've seen 1 or 2 failures with those. It was quite interesting, but there was one guy who made his fly by putting a canard on the nose, and that's the only way he could really make it fly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd be really, really interesting. Okay, so you know, where did you source all this information? I mean, is it difficult to program the electronics? I mean, what's involved with that? I mean, like you said, like, you know, you don't really need to understand it, but surely you need some sort of understanding to program this thing.
Well, I mean, the number one source of any information of these days, of course, is the internet, and Google is the starting point. And that's, you know, that's quite amazing that we've got that these days. I mean, you and I both remember the days before the internet when, you know, you probably had to order a book from the library and they didn't have it, and you'd wait 3 months for it to arrive, and by that time you'd probably figured it out anyway, or given up. You know, but now you can, the internet is incredible, and a lot of stuff is on YouTube. There's a lot of people on YouTube. You know, I think there's someone you want to mention, but I did want to mention, you know, Painless 360, who's also in the UK, who publishes a lot of videos about this kind of stuff, and I get a lot of information from his videos, but there's many others as well. And, you know, in the end, that's the general information, and sometimes the specific step-by-steps about how to set up a particular configuration, a particular piece of equipment, a flight video transmitter, a flight controller, or whatever. You can almost always find a video where somebody's done it and set that up. If not, you know, for ArduPilot, which I specifically are really delving into, there's a wiki online with a massive amount of information about how to configure almost everything. then there's support forums where a huge army of volunteers provide support and help to people. Facebook is quite interesting. It's, you know, turning, as far as I can see, and maybe I don't see it from other people's perspective, Facebook is turning more into a technical resource for me. There's Facebook groups about Autopilot and Betaflight and iNav and etc. So there's all of that. One of the other things, though, to mention, again, I did mention it earlier, you know, I have a background in computers. You know, I mentioned way back in the depths of time, I kind of moved away from building control line planes, not radio control planes. And that was because I discovered computers, and then I went to university and did a university degree in computer science, and then spent 35 years working in IT, including, you know, building computers and putting them together and supporting them and developing software. And so I do have a bit of a background that gives me kind of a leg up, I guess, a bit of a head start, or you know, the ability to delve into something that means I go into a lot of detail of things and really figure things out, where, you know, like I say, you shouldn't necessarily need to do that in order to understand things, but I have that, so it helps me. I'm kind of happy about it.
Well, you've answered another question I have in my head. I thought, how did you learn all this stuff? So you seem to have this little advantage, I think, especially over me, because I mean, I studied electronics when I was younger, and then found out there was no money in it, and then I went into electrical installation and engineering and everything else. So I never went quite that far with the computers, and everything I've learned about computers I've had to teach myself. So you've answered sort of like one question I was dying to learn. How the heck does he know all this stuff? Because I've heard some of the language you've used, and I'm thinking, I don't understand what he's talking about.
Sorry about that. I have to try and tone it down. I guess I do that in my videos, but I need to maybe try and use a little bit more plain language, I suppose. I'll try. And keep me honest with your questions. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, from what you're telling me, so if you know, for my fourth question, I think is why are your methods better than those of a safe system? I mean, I think you've almost really answered that. You know, but is it possible to buy these things off the shelf and just plug them in and make it work?
Well, you know, I don't know if I said it clearly enough earlier. I don't think it's better than safe. Safe is the same technology, right? It under the covers is a flight controller that's with a flight computer that's processing information about what's going on. You know, a Spectrum receiver has an accelerometer and a gyro built into it that it uses to figure out what to do, and it's using basically the same concepts that something like Autopilot or iNav or Betaflight are doing. And what Spectrum have done, and good for them, it's a great idea, is really packaged it up so that anybody without any background can just plug it in and use it, and that's a good thing. But it's not necessarily better. It's just, well, easier to use for you know, maybe people who don't have a computer science degree, I suppose. You know, iNav and Autopilot are, you know, you have to flash firmware on a flight controller, and if you're not up for doing that, then, well, you probably stick with safe or some of the other out-of-the-box flight controllers. And I want to mention a couple of others. I mean, there are some where you can just buy them out of the box and use them. There's the, you know, NX3, FC150 or FC130 is another one, and in particular the ZOD or ZOHD Copilot Lite. You just plug it in and it works. And there's also the SNL Plus, which is a little more advanced but similar. There's a little bit of configuration and setup, but nothing like you're going to have to do with the others. So there's kind of like a middle ground where you can do safe Spectrum AS3X, and then you can step up to a simple flight controller, and then you can step up to a slightly more sophisticated. The ZOHD Copilot Lite has a GPS in it, You can't program in missions, but you can have it do a return to home. If the plane does a flyaway, you can press a button and it'll automatically come back. And you don't have to do anything to make that work. It just works. So,
wow, you make it sound like it almost land itself.
not quite, that won't, but you can do that with autopilot, and I have a video, I have two videos where the plane will automatically land itself, but that's a little more advanced because there is some configuration and setup. One of the things that the advanced versions do is, they have configuration and options in there because they have to be configured for your particular plane, your vehicle. They do need to know things like what is the stall speed, what is the maximum speed that the plane can fly, what is the cruise speed, what's the maximum pitch that it should ever use, what's the maximum amount of roll, all those kinds of things need to be configured into the plane. So now you're starting to get into the more advanced stuff. So back to your earlier question, I just want to say there are simple ways to start, and there's steps you can go to get there. I mean, I did the same thing. I started with something simple and then up to the next level and up to the next level. I just went there pretty fast, I guess, because of my background in computers and IT.
Well, that's quite interesting because that's quite a good segue onto my next question, because you're talking about future projects. Obviously, by the sounds of it, this is going to include stabilisation. So, do you have something in mind for that next project?
Oh, I'm already building my next project. The recent video that the one you commented on about the Zealot H743 flight controller, that's going to be the brains inside. And I'm going to let the cat out of the bag here, but I'm building what's called a sonic model binary, and it's a foamy. It's a foam-based plane. It's a slightly larger plane, and I'm hoping that it's going to be a long-range FPV. So the kind of thing where I can fly, 5 kilometers away, that kind of thing. Ideally, I don't know how far I can see line of sight, but something where I can fly an awfully long way away and get some really amazing, hopefully awesome video flying that. So let's have a quick look at this. This is the fuselage of the plane. You can see I've started working on it, and here's.
It looks a little bit like the front end of a helicopter.
And there's one of the wings that I've been working on.
Okay.
And I'm going to be doing a video on this. And it says where I still get to combine a little bit of building with the technology stuff. The reason why I chose the sonic model binary is because it has a known problem. The known problem is that it's a little light on the wing area compared to the overall size of the plane. So what I've done, and if you can see that, I've extended the wing.
Yeah.
And so added a bit of extra wing area and a little bit of washout in the wing. I've actually recorded a video that's not published yet about how I'm doing that. And then I'm going to put that all together with the flight controller in it, a couple of cameras and video transmitter, and hopefully, because it is a foamy and I don't have to spend 4 months building it from little bits of balsa, I might get it in the air a little bit quicker than I did with the Falcon.
Wow, I'd really like to be there, but you're just too far away.
Yeah,
I'd really love to be there, feet on the ground, watching that and studying it and see how it flies and how it performs and everything else.
I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what to say to that, to be honest with you. Okay, so I mean, obviously things improve and technology improves and things get smaller. And obviously, these systems, I guess, can be improved upon. Can it be improved upon immediately, or have we got to wait a little while?
Well, the most amazing thing about this technology is that almost all of it, except maybe the DJI, which is really drones, it's all open source. You know what open source is?
Go on, enlighten me.
Well, open source is software that is developed in public, online, where people just volunteer and contribute code to make improvements. And Arduino, Betaflight, and iNav are all open source projects which have a core team of people who are working on a daily basis to make updates and improvements to the software. And Arduino is actively being improved and updated every day. They just released a new version that included, I don't know, almost 100 new updates, various things from bug fixes to improved capabilities for VTOL to new display options for displaying things in on-screen displays. And it's possible for anybody to join and support it. And I have literally committed or contributed to the Autopilot project. Not a massive contribution, but I helped. I've helped to update the documentation. I've made suggestions for improvement to the documentation by writing in new information that I found and saying, "Hey guys, why don't you put this on the wiki?" And they say, "Oh, with a couple of tweaks, yeah, we'll do that." So we'll accept that, and they accept it, and there my changes are online, and that can happen with the code and the software. There are a team of people all over the world. Some working full time, some working part time, some occasionally, a bit like myself, and it's continuously being improved on an ongoing basis, and it's really quite exciting.
It certainly sounds like a leap of faith, putting your trust in other people. I've only ever come across this sort of thing once. I haven't got a 3D printer, but I know that online you can buy or get for free programs for, say, part of my channel is I will show people how to make a little glider. This is like an £8 Charles Chucker glider from Lidl, and you can turn it into a high aerobatic aircraft. And I found out by accident, people on there who will give you a program, if you've got a 3D printer, to make a front cowl for the motor, because these things are not supposed to have a motor. And I thought, oh wow, okay. So
when are you buying it? When are you buying your 3D printer, Nick?
Yeah.
When are you? You've got a workshop just perfect for it. I mean, I would buy one if I had a place to put it, but you have. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing your 3D printing experiments.
Yeah, I think maybe I should look into that. I think they're about £300 in the UK for a half reasonable one. But I'd have to learn. I'd have to go onto YouTube and get some 13-year-old to show me how to do it.
Yeah, as far as I understand it, they're not that hard, because you can just download the files to 3D print things that other people have done, and you can start producing stuff fairly easily straight away. Designing new things to 3D print, I mean, that's again a next step thing, and you may or may not ever need to get there. You can do something really useful with it just by getting the printer and downloading files. Right now there's a couple of interesting 3D prints I'd love to do where you can convert an existing plane into a VTOL plane by 3D printing little duvelakis that you attach to the nacelles of the plane so that the motor can tilt up from becoming a forward-facing motor to becoming an upward-facing motor, that kind of thing. And I'd be kind of interested in doing that, but you know what, there's only so many hours in the day. My wife gives me a hard time about that, because she says, stop thinking about those planes all the time. There's other things, and I'm not sure I understand what she means.
No, I have similar problems, actually, if I'm being honest. No, actually, if I'm being absolutely truthful, my good lady encourages me. I think she wants to get me out of the house or something. I don't know. But
yeah,
maybe I'll chat
I get encouraged too. Yeah, it's true.
But, I mean, do you need any special type of radio? I mean, is there because obviously there's different levels of radios. I mean, can you use a box standard radio, or is there a minimum specification of radio?
Oh no, you can use. I mean, people do and can use like a standard Spectrum or Futaba radio with a flight controller. You can plug any standard receiver into a flight controller and use it with any kind of plane or drone that you want to use. I do find that I like OpenTX, and I'm probably going to move from OpenTX to EdgeTX, and we don't have to get into the difference of that because that can be a different video, but they are, again, open source radio standards. There's a team of people working on developing those right now, and the advantage is that they're very configurable, but there's a lot of messing around. So one of the interesting things about the way a flight can, maybe I'll answer the question like this. A, any transmitter and any receiver will work with a flight controller. B, they actually simplify what you do with the transmitter, because most of the configuration and messing around with how to get things to work moves into the flight controller. You often, for example, in any transmitter, you will turn off your trims, and you'll turn off your mixers, and maybe turn off your expos and weights even, and all of that stuff will be set up on the flight controller. And all you need the flight controller to be is a bit like a trainer transmitter that you might use if you're using a buddy system to learn, or if you're using a flight simulator on your computer. All you want to do is have the movement of the sticks, and the switches go to the flight controller, and then the flight controller does the rest. And that can be done with any transmitter. There's no real restriction.
Well, would this be ideal for somebody who is coming into the hobby, and they haven't got the resources or somebody to show them how to fly, and this is going to save them, or is it somebody who already knows how to fly?
I would never jump straight to an advanced flight controller like Autopilot or even iNav or Betaflight. But you could use one of the lower level ones, like maybe the ZOHT Copilot Lite example that I gave earlier. When I flew, I got it with a thing called the Drift, which was a really interesting little plane. And that Drift, I don't know what it is, but I've only been flying model planes. At that time, I'd only been flying for a few months, and I could not get that thing to fly in manual mode. If I put that plane into manual mode, it would hit the ground as soon as you could blink. But I switched it to stabilized mode, and the flight controller was doing the work, and I could fly that plane around not beautifully. I got some awesome video. I've got a couple of videos of flying in the snow with that plane. It flies very, very nicely, but the minute I went back to manual mode and turned off the stabilizer, that plane would hit the dirt. So, I would suggest that, that kind of step-up level flight controller stabilizer, or your Spectrum Safe technology is a great way to get in the air, experience the joy of watching the plane fly around that you're controlling it, with low risk of crashing and burning and ending up with a bunch of pieces of foam or balsa wood on the ground. And I'd encourage anybody to use that, actually. And and one of the things I guess I have to mention this. I've seen some people say about these stabilizers, especially these low-end ones, make sure you fly the plane first and get the plane to fly, make sure the plane's flying well before you put it in. And in my experience, that's backwards. I think actually the purpose of these things is to get the plane to fly even when it's not less than perfect, and to prevent it from crashing, because if you crash it before you get a chance to use the stabilizer, what's the point? So I would be saying that as long as you follow the steps to set something like that up, then it can get that plane into the air no matter how little skill you have, like I had back in the early days, or I'm not the greatest pilot even now, and they can absolutely help you. The advanced stuff, no matter what, don't jump right into it. Learn at least the basics of flying first. before you dip your feet into automated flights, autonomous flying waypoints, and all the other advanced things.
Yeah, maybe it'll help me, I think, with one or two projects I've got in my head. I've got something actually I've not really talked about to anybody, although I've touched on it earlier. I was thinking of making a Messerschmitt 163 Comet. And the thing is, these things are so fast, and I'm thinking about putting a rocket motor in.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, can I react fast enough? Right. And maybe something like this would be ideal for that. I don't know.
Well, here's the way I look at that. The real planes, I mean, maybe, I don't know, but maybe not that Messerschmitt, but, any modern fighter jet used by any Air Force in the world today is basically fly-by-wire with a computer that's actually doing the work. Those planes are so edgy and twitchy that a person pretty much can't fly it without computer assistance. That's the real plane. So why would a radio control model be any different? I would be saying that, that the way to fly those things should be by at least using a Spectrum Safe type stabilizer, and you can buy those receivers from Spectrum that are not part of an ARF or a plane, for example. And absolutely, absolutely. Use the technology. Why not?
If I'm being honest.
It's there. It's available. If a professional military fighter pilot needs a computer to fly a jet, why wouldn't you? And why would that be a problem?
Okay. Well, my next question is, and actually I think you probably answered it a lot earlier, which was, if you're the type of guy like myself who occasionally gets the devilment in him and he thinks, oh, I want to do some aerobatics and barrel rolls and stuff like that. But I think you might have already touched on this. You can just flick a switch and turn off the safe systems, and you can start doing these aerobatics, or can it help you do those aerobatics?
Well, see, that's very, very interesting question. So, number one, I did partially answer that question. Yes, you can always switch to manual mode, and then you can make the plane do whatever you like, and that's easy and simple. But the other answer is, especially with Autopilot, Autopilot is doing some things where the plane can actually do aerobatics by itself. There's a kind of a project, a development experimental project happening with Autopilot right now, where and there's some videos online that you can watch where someone just flips a switch and the plane will do a loop, and they switch another switch and the plane will do a nice roll. And they even have one where the plane will do what's called a rolling circle, where it circles around, but it actually is rolling at the same time going around the circle, all under complete control of the flight controller. There's more work happening on that little project. Like I say, it's quite experimental right now, but the idea of being able to create scripts where you can join multiple of those tricks together, step by step, it's probably going to happen. It's fascinating, and I tried to get into following that project and maybe even trying it myself, but I'm just not at the level as a pilot myself of being able to keep up with what they're doing. So I'm just kind of watching as a bystander and admiring the work.
Yeah, I have to admit, some of the guys down my club, they do what they call 3D flying. And I think it's just more or less what you're touching on here, 3D flying.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I mean, if you could find software that could do that, that'd be quite inspirational. Although it might be actually worth learning it in a practical sense. But and also, I think you also touched on this earlier as well about how much do these systems cost to buy and install, because it sounds to me as though you're studying these things to put them together, rather than just buying it off the shelf as a kit and doing it. It comes over to me as being self customization, a bespoke system of your own choosing. But obviously, I mean, these things have a cost, and can you just buy it off the shelf ready made, or do you have to go down the route that you're putting over, to me anyway, at least, that you're having to build it up yourself? I don't quite know.
Well, in my mind, it's pretty much the same concept as with the RC planes that you're used to, Nick. Right? It's you can buy off the shelf. You can buy a complete package, including the plane and the flight controller built in and wired together, even with the transmitter, with everything set up. So you just open the box and power it up, and you can fly, and you can pay $60,000, $70,000 for some of those planes. You can pay. I've seen $1,000 to $1,500 for a complete package, and I think that's probably the cheapest you can get for and it's a bit like with a RC plane, right? I mean, you can buy a kit and build it yourself, and or you can buy an ARF, or you can buy a ready to fly, and you just open the box and plug it in, and you're off to fly. So this has the same options. And really, what I'm doing is the same thing as you're doing with building the VMC Fokker DR1 that you're building. It's the kit version, or putting all the pieces together yourself. It's kind of fun figuring it out. For me, it's fun. I'm really interested in it. But if I didn't really want to try to understand how everything works together, and maybe even have to solder some wires together to make a video transmitter connect to a camera and a flight controller, I can spend more money and buy it where someone's done all that work and put it together, and all I have to do is turn it on. So yeah, it's pretty much and so you can spend, I mean, the basic components, things like a video transmitter and a camera, you can buy for $20 or $30. A flight controller now, it's kind of hard to find one for less than $100 Canadian, which is about 60 pounds, I think, UK money. And that Pix Racer flight controller that I originally bought for 60 Canadian dollars, or 50 pounds, I just checked, and they're selling those now for $600, which is 375 pounds. It's crazy. So it depends. When you put all the components I guess I'll try and figure that out with the binary when I put all the pieces together, but I'm going to guess that definitely the electronic components cost more than the actual model kit to add into the plane altogether. I'm thinking
so
the plane's going to cost
really,
about
would it be true to say that do we need this technology to get a little cheaper, really, before it becomes mainstream?
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question. That's more of a philosophical question. One of the, like everything else that's happening these days with the impact of COVID and the supply chain issues that are affecting almost everything around the world and causing, cost of apples to go up at the supermarket, the cost of electronics is actually going up right now too. Typically, price of electronic components goes down over time, so I would expect that will happen. Right now, they're getting a little expensive, and but yeah, sure, it'll either that or what will happen is you'll get more bang for the buck. You'll get, maybe the price won't go down, but you'll get more technology, more power in a flight controller over time. In terms of becoming mainstream, the mainstream stuff seems to be about it becoming commercially used. So the idea, things like drone deliveries and realtors using drones for property inspections, and people, farmers using RC, autopilot type planes to plant seeds, or to do crop dusting, to put pesticides onto crops. That's actually happening, and that's the kind of thing that's really going to drive this becoming mainstream, I think.
So can I ask an off-the-cuff question that just come into my mind? It might sound a bit daft, I suppose, but you know, with the technology we have today, is it possible for me to build a model, put it in the post, send it to Canada, you put it on the field and switch it on, and I can have a dogfight with you from the UK?
Well, the last part, the dogfight, I'm not sure how that works because we're in different physical places.
Yes,
but otherwise
you
can
wear these goggles, can't you, these days, these 3D goggles? I've seen them down the club, you know, some people use them. I don't know how comfortable I would be trying to take off with something and then suddenly pulling the goggles on my face, but it was an interesting thought that occurred to me just a few minutes ago while I was listening to you. And I thought, you know, the way he's talking to it, is that possible? Could I put some goggles on and fly against you from England?
Well, the last part is the trick. I mean, everything else has already been done. People are doing dogfights with these kind of FPV type planes, and they use, you know, lasers, and a bit like, you know, laser tag, but in the air, where, you know, you fire the laser and the plane registers a hit and you know, virtually crashes and that kind of thing. I kind of see why that wouldn't be doable. I don't know if it's doable now, but yeah, it's an interesting idea.
Okay, well, Tim, look, you know, I really, really appreciate you giving up this amount of time, and you know, it's been quite insightful, and you have actually given me a better understanding about what you're trying to achieve and why you're actually doing it. Because I have to admit, I was a bit sort of like, why is he doing that? You know?
Okay, well, cool. I hope so. It's been interesting too. I've enjoyed it. Yeah,
it's been good. Well, anyway, you did mention some other people that were inspirations to you, and I think one of those that you're not mentioned just yet was Cliff Harvey, and he's doing, what's that project he's doing at the moment with the Michelangelo thing?
The Vinci Flyer. Yep, just watched the new video from him this morning. It is inspirational what he's doing with you know, designing a plane from scratch, and he's going to make a kit, and I tell you what, I'm going to line up to buy it as well. I'm going to buy that Da Vinci Flyer kit, and I will build it and fly it, just because I think it's an amazing, a wonderful concept. It's really interesting what he's done, and evolving it in front of the camera as and using all of our input into you know, suggestions for improvement and figuring out how to make it work. It's kind of interesting. I like what he does. Yeah,
he's obviously got a labour of love going on there.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've both mentioned Cliff a few times. I've spoken to Cliff over the phone. I was able to help and advise him on something that he's within my world. You know, he wanted an access point in his workshop, and now he's doing these live streams and everything else. And you've mentioned him a few times, and I'm just wondering, you know, if Cliff's watching this, does he want to come on one day and you know, we'll have a bit of a chat? Maybe you will know he's got that access point in the computer in his workshop. I don't know, but it'd be kind of interesting though.
Yeah, you should definitely do an interview with him. I think that'd be very interesting to watch. I would definitely watch it.
So there you go. I hope you found that insightful. I know I did. It certainly gave me an education. And obviously, you know, I think I probably will look a bit deeper into this myself. Anyway, thank you very much for your time. I look forward to seeing you in the Hangar Chat number 6. Maybe Cliff will come on, you don't know. We'll see. No pressure. And enjoy the end screen. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Barron flight.
The Barron flight.
Barron flights.
Flights.
Barron flights. Barron flights.